Afternoon, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us today on day five of joint U.S. and Israeli operations, Epic Fury and Roaring Lions. I'm Blaise Mishtal, Jinsa's Vice President for Policy, and here to discuss the latest in the operations and what comes next. I'm delighted to be joined by a panel of our experts. From Israel, we have Jinsa Distinguished Fellow and former Israeli National Security Advisor, Major General Yaakov Amidror. And here in the U.S., we have former U.S. European Command Deputy Commander and U.S. Central Command Air Force Commander, General Chuck Wald, who also happens to be the co-chair of JINSA's Iran Policy Project, and JINSA's very own Randy and Charles Wax, Senior Fellow John Hanna. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us to shed light on what's going on in Iran and around the region. General Amidror, if I could start with you, it's day five. Are we still in the first phase of this conflict? Have we shifted into a different operational phase than at the outset? Just in terms of the operations inside of Iran, can you describe to us sort of what's going
Yes,
on?
I think that we are in a new phase. There are three elements that should be mentioned when I speak about the new phase. First, as was declared by the American side, we have overall control of the skies of Iran. And the meaning of it that we don't have to allocate but very few aeroplanes to deal with the anti-air systems of Iran. We can fly day and night over most part, I think the majority of the landscape of Iran. Probably there is here and there some remnant of the anti-air system, and that will be taken during this night or tomorrow. And the fact on the air, in this case, not on the ground, is that having this control, giving the Americans and the Israelis full flexibility to do whatever they want, to move from one part to another if there is a new intelligence and so on and so forth. The second is that it is clear now that it is not just about nuclear and missiles, it is about degrading the ability of the regime in many areas. The fact that the Americans knocked the Iranian Navy in the Gulf and far from the Gulf. Today they sank the submarine, took an Iranian ship near Sri Lanka. It means that it is now about weakening the regime, not less than destroying the nuclear and the missile product. And third, which from my point of view is very important, it is clear that at least from Israel is here, so we don't have to bring more forces into Israel. But the Americans are saying clearly that they are bringing more capabilities to the area. The meaning of it is not the end of the first stage, it's the beginning of the second stage. We are going to accelerate based on the American capabilities and the IDF and the Israeli Air Force. We are going to accelerate the operation in Iran. And after having the freedom of over the control over freedom and control over the Iranian skies, and when it is clear that it is not just the destroying the both project, but about weakening the regime, I think that the fact that the Americans are ready to bring more forces to the area is very significant. Not connected to not part of the Israeli-American operation, the American-Israeli operation, it would be more fair to say. The fact that the Iranians attack all the neighborhood, all the countries in the Middle East, but Turkey and Egypt had been attacked by the Iranians, including Cyprus, which is not part of the Middle East, but part of Europe. What will be the meaning of it? How they will react? What we will see in the future relating to these countries and the relations with Iran? Will we see kind of a new members of the alliance coming in, reacting to what the Iranians did? Qatar just announced that they succeeded to identify two cells of spies and agent of Iran inside Qatar, something that never was heard. All that, I don't know what will be the meaning of it. It's a beginning of a process that might lead to a change in the whole Middle East. So it is not phase in the operation, but it is a phase in the operation because we don't know how it will influence the operation but we don't know how it will influence the operation in the Middle East in the future. So we are in a different situation today. From the American-Israeli point of view, much better, much better one, and let's see how it will be exploited by the alliance in the future days.
General Wald, let me ask you about the U.S. operation. Since you were responsible for planning the U.S. air war in Afghanistan, I mean, can you give us a sense of how the current U.S. Operation Epic Fury compares to past U.S. operations? But also, how long can the U.S. keep this up? We hear different assessments from different U.S. officials. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, seemed to suggest the U.S. might run out of munitions in 4 or 5 days. We're now on day 5. President Trump says we can go on indefinitely. So how complicated is what the United States is doing, and how long can it keep it up?
Well, it's very complicated, and it's Israel as well. So it's not the U.S. military. But as General Amador just mentioned, we're bringing in new forces into the region. Some of those will be bombers, B-52s, B-1s. They carry conventional weapons. We've got plenty of those, plenty of JDAMs, Joint Direct Attack Munitions. I don't see us running out, and I see us destroying the Iranian military's capacity to project power completely before this is over, including their Navy. So I'm not worried about it. We're running out of munitions. I'm not worried about us not being able to sustain this for a long period. I think we will, and I'm pretty confident in it.
What does it take for the U.S. Air Force to have this level of cooperation and coordination that it has with the Israeli Air Force? And are there other partners that we work that closely with that we could conduct such an operation with?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think NATO, obviously, we practice with NATO all the time, but the GCC, we could be more integrated with them. But with Israel, I think we're in lockstep. I think after Midnight Hammer, it was proven that we really worked well together, and I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think it's impressive. I think it'll go down in history as one of the greatest military applications of power ever.
Thank you, General. John, let me ask you. General Amador told us that we're now in the beginning of the second phase, potentially, of this operation.
With your permission, I want to say something about the cooperation.
Please.
It's very modest description of the cooperation from the Israeli point of view. I heard, not formally, of course, but from those who are very much involved in this cooperation, that they had been surprised by the amount of readiness of the Americans to cooperate. And the feeling today that we are not just on the same page, that we are reading the same text together. Each of us is taking the part of the text that is better in. You're better in that, so you will do that. We are better in that, we will do that. And the trust between the two sides, sharing intelligence, sharing planning methods, sharing knowledge about capabilities, and so on and so forth, is, from our point of view, is the highest level. we don't have an experience in any coalition war in the past in our history. So it's the first time, but it's not just the first time. It is the first time, but in such a way that give Israel huge confidence on the American side, and it will not surprise me if it is the same feeling on the American side, because you cannot have such trust if it is not in both sides at the same time. And the ability not to try to change each other, but to bring to the table each side its unique capabilities, and together to build something which is stronger than each of us by itself, is something which, from our point of view, is one of the secrets of this alliance, and should be as the basis of the successful operation up till now. It is going from the president and the prime minister at the high end to the technicians who are helping the Americans to take off from Israeli Air Force base. I heard the description. In our side, many of them are reserve people, are not regular armed, but all the technicians which are helping the Americans. And for what I hear, they speak. They are civilians. From what they hear is cooperation, which is like one real Air Force. It's not two Air Force fighting together. It is one Air Force with two elements. One is an Israeli side, one is an American side, but it is one body which fights together. And it is for us, it's very important to hear the American point of view, but from the Israeli point of view, we are really appreciate the cooperation.
Hey,
On that
Blaze,
theme,
let me just
yeah.
add one thing to that. I 100% agree. And I think the other thing that needs to be commended is the work Jens has done with getting CENTCOM to be the overseer for U.S. operations in the Middle East, as well as the opening of Ovda Airfield. Those are significant issues for this operation. So we thank the Israelis for letting us come there.
Yeah, so on that theme, General Amador, let me ask you, is fighting as one, as you said, but within that, is there a division of labor? You sort of said that there's, the U.S. and the Israel are each picking what they're best at, or are there actually joint operations happening with the two air forces flying and operating together over Iran?
No, each one take what is better in, and there are some areas in which the Americans understand that we have a better system, not because we have any secret, but because we, unlike you, we concentrated at the last 30 years in learning and having intelligence in Iran when you had been in other places. The carrier, the Ford carrier came from the Caribbeans. They had to move from one operation to another in 10 days. In our case, it's either Gaza, Lebanon, or Iran, and mostly it is Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza. Unlike you, so we have some benefits from the fact that we are, for many years, focus ourselves in Iran, and for specific issues, we have a better and more flexible capability, and you have your capabilities that we will never have. This is why you flew the B-2s from far away to do some jobs that only the B-2 can do, and other areas in which, because you are closer to the area, you can do a better job than us. So we are separating the area, and we are separating missions based on each side best capabilities.
Yeah, one of the things I'd say, and I totally agree with General Amador, is that I suspect the Israelis are refueling off our tankers and using some of the AWACS C2 information and some of the early warning stuff. They'll stay. We're not probably flying coordinated fighter elements, but I know we're helping refuel them.
Yeah, in Israel today there are some dozens of refueling American airplanes. Maybe some of them will remain in Israel. It's our dream. But yes, I think that logistically, no question, the fact that Israel is a big carrier for the Americans' Air Force is very significant. I didn't speak about the logistic before that, but you are right. The logistic is clear, done much easier because Israel is there.
Jens has been calling for the United States to expedite KC-46 refueling tankers to Israel for a long time. We never imagined so many would show up and actually participate in a mission to Iran. So it's incredible to see. John, I guess let me ask you, General Amador suggested that we're now sort of in the beginning of phase 2 operationally. In terms of the U.S. operation and what we're hearing from the administration, are we seeing a sort of clear definition of objectives in phase 2, or sort of a breakdown of here's what we wanted to accomplish in phase 1 and here's what we're moving on to? What do we know about how the U.S. is thinking about its objectives as we're in day 5 here?
Well, I think they're being slightly narrowed and clarified. Over the past several days, I think they really have kind of settled on 4 key goals that all fall under the rubric of what General Wald said, which is completely degrading and constraining and weakening Iran's ability to project power beyond its borders to threaten U.S. interests, our allies, and at the end of the day, the Iranian people. That ability to project power, which includes obviously whatever we can do to further destroy the nuclear program. And there I would just highlight this outstanding issue of Pickaxe Mountain, as well as the buried supplies of enriched uraniums. I don't know what we can do on that, but Pickaxe Mountain is that facility that we haven't touched yet, as far as I know, that is buried even deeper underground than Fordo. Whether or not it's susceptible to even our MOPS and B-2 bombers, I'm not sure. I've heard different things about that, but that remains a real challenge if that's a undeclared possible site for enrichment and maybe storage of some highly enriched uranium. Obviously, the missiles, and it sounds like that project is not only to destroy the existing stockpiles, all of the production facilities, but to completely degrade the Iranian defense industrial base to a point where the production of missiles is going to be if they want to restart that program, it's really going to be a potential multi-year effort. So to go far, far beyond what we did in the 12-day war with regard to the missile program. Obviously, the Navy issue, once this war started, and the risk of what Iran could do with the Navy, that became a priority issue for the United States to basically sink the Iranian Navy and destroy its capability to project power, threaten our Navy, our forces, and hopefully limit their ability to close off the Strait of Hormuz, which is still an outstanding kind of issue, not because the Iranians appear to have mined it, but because simply the threats have really affected the global insurance market, and ships are just staying out for the moment, watching and waiting to see what happens. The president made some announcements about that yesterday, offering a U.S. government program of making reasonably priced insurance available to key shippers, and then raising the prospect of a possible U.S. naval escorts at some point in time for international shipping through the straits. We'll just have to see what happens there. And then I think the fourth thing is to try and further damage the ability to work with Iran's proxy network and to spread terror and mayhem throughout the region. So I think those are the key goals. They obviously want to weaken the regime very badly as General Amidor has said, they seem to be going after a wide range of IRGC, besiege, intelligence targets, including something that I guess we'll talk about. They seem to be pounding the Iranian areas in Kurdistan, which is a very interesting issue that's come on everybody's radar screen. What is the plan for Iranian Kurdistan? A little bit has been written about it. Whether or not that's a key part of any Israeli and American plan to do something out of Iranian Kurdistan will be an interesting development over the coming days and weeks, perhaps. But weakening the Iranian regime, I would say, is still very much in the cards. But I have a sense that people are beginning to circumscribe a little bit the making regime change in any way, shape, or form a formal objective of the military campaign, rather to weaken the regime and to hold open the prospect that the Iranian people, if they so choose, could rise up again and as they did a month ago and challenge the regime in a serious way. But I do have a sense that people in Washington are beginning to maybe move back from some of the president's boldest claims in that first day of the war.
Just sticking with Iran's retaliation in the last several days, and on the topic, John, that John raised of the Strait of Hormuz, General Wall, do we have the capabilities to reopen the strait safely? How long would it take to make it safe to shipping, and what would we have to do to make sure that all that maritime traffic can get out without Iranian threat?
Yeah, I think the big issue will be, do they mine the Straits of Hormuz or not? And if they do mine the Straits, then it's going to take a little longer. It's first of all hard to do. It's a narrow area. It's a dangerous thing to do, and we don't have a lot of mine clearing capability in the U.S. Navy. So I would say that would be the biggest problem. So I think they need to do everything they can to avoid that by taking out as much Iranian Navy as they can beforehand. Secondly, we did the tanker wars, they call it, in the mid-'80s, where we had Ernest Will, where we protected tankers going down the Persian Gulf. And so we've done that before. But I would think the mining would be the biggest issue. And number two is, I think, going back to your previous discussion, away from the Gulf itself, but is in the future, I think this will hopefully motivate the GCC countries and the United States and Israel to do more collaborative training in the region and develop better integrated air defense capability and command and control capability in the future to protect the Persian Gulf as well as our neighbors. But I think they need to take out the entire Iranian Navy and all the littoral threats to shipping in the Persian Gulf. And if they see anything moving out there with the mine on it, they need to take that out.
Do the Iranians need ships in order to mine the strait? Can they just release them from ports nearby? How easy is it to make sure that they don't
Well,
mine
I
them?
mean, they could float anything they want, but it wouldn't be very effective. They'd have to go out and place them. They tether them. I'm sure we're watching very close. And if that starts to happen, it's whoever's driving out there with mines on their ship is not going to last very long. So, but I know they're paying attention to it.
General Amidor, we've seen Iranian fire drop quite a bit since the first day of the conflict, and I think the Israelis have said that they've taken out something like 200 or 300 Iranian missile launchers already. Do you have an estimate of how much longer Iran can keep firing? How much more launch capabilities? How many more missiles does it have? How much longer is it going to be a threat? You're on mute, General.
I cannot assess how many days. What I can say for sure that the effort of the Americans and the Israelis to minimize the ability of the Iranians has very good fruits. Less and less missiles had been launched by the Iranians into Israel. They did succeed to make even one big salvo, which might put our defense system in a constraint. When they launch 2, 3, 4, 5 missiles at the same time, it's easy to deal with. And the more the days will over, the less they will have the ability to launch. They probably lose many missiles and many launchers. I don't know when it will be zero, and probably will not be zero till the end of the war. But the less they are launching, and the fact that they cannot coordinate big salvos is very good from our point of view. And it will continue. We know how to live with it. There is only even application in Israel on the phone that you can measure at the end of the day how many hours you spend in the shelter, based on the formal decision to send the civilians should be in the shelter. I mean, we live with it. In the level of today, it's not a problem. And I believe that within few days, the flights to Israel will begin, and from Israel will begin, and business, the high-tech works anyhow. Schools and kindergarten and so on will take a few more days. With this level, we know how to deal, how to live.
Were you surprised at the level, either higher than expected, lower than expected, of what Iran was able to fire? Lower than expected.
Lower than expected. I was sure that the Iranians understand how important it is to put our system under pressure by having big salvos. They didn't succeed to produce even one. The number of missiles which had been launched into Israel, the number of missiles which had been launched into Israel since the beginning, around 200. As far as I know, they didn't succeed to hit even one important target. We have casualties. We have very bad luck in Bet Shemesh. 9 people had been killed in a shelter. It was direct hit of the shelter, and the shelter didn't stand. Some of those who had been killed were in the stairs to the shelter. I mean, that was really bad luck. Other than that, the statistic works. I mean, most of the missiles we succeed to intercept. The number of casualties, other than Bet Shemesh, which was a big tragedy, families, two brothers and mother, and very, very, very tragic event. Other than that, the statistic is very well.
You know, Blaise, on that, first of all, our condolences to that general for your loss of your life of the people in your country. You know, the other thing that is, again, as we talked about last August during our review of the Midnight Hammer, the intelligence community in this, both mainly the Israelis, but the U.S. too, really needs a pat on the back. Impressive. I mean, getting rid of the leadership in the early days of this conflict, just like we did previously, but this one significantly is probably, will go down in history as one of the greatest activities in any conflict ever. I mean, it's significant. So that really probably complicates their ability to now plan counterattacks out of Iran. They don't have the leadership.
General Amador, let me play devil's advocate a bit and ask you, does the lack of a major Iranian retaliation against Israel, the fact that they were not able to launch these large salvos, as you were just saying, does that suggest that concerns that we heard before the war, that Iran had reconstituted its missile program since Rising Lion, that it had rebuilt its arsenal to almost the same number, that it had rebuilt its launchers, does that suggest that assessment was wrong?
No, probably the assessment was very accurate. I think that what we learned from the 12 days in June, how important it is to build a system in which we are identifying and killing the launchers immediately when they get out, and the ability of the Americans to destroy the tunnels and not just block the entrances to the tunnels, something that we couldn't make. And the combination of the American satellites capability in our intelligence and unmanned aeroplanes all over Iran give us a very accurate intelligence, which allow us to kill and destroy launchers either before they launch or immediately afterwards, and then they have less launcher for the next stage. As far as I know, the assessment was accurate, and one of the reasons why it was important to do it now, because many people say, okay, why now? One of the reasons that they will not succeed to produce the 1,000 missiles that they had in mind to produce, and we thought that it should be before they have these numbers.
On that topic,
I heard from some people in Europe, in America, saying it was not an imminent threat. Of course, if you begin to act only when your neck is in danger because you are in a situation in which you are almost hanged, it's not an imminent. But I think that it is stupid to wait to this situation to begin to act. You have to prevent it from being implemented, and then you can deal with it. Otherwise, when they begin to launch the 8,000 missiles that they had in mind, it will be too late, and that is imminent. So we don't have to wait for the imminent threat. We should prevent it from being materialized.
On that topic of why go now, there's been claims in the United States, including from some Trump administration officials, that Israel forced the United States into it, that Israel was going to attack, and so the U.S. had to join them. Is that your understanding of what happened, General Amajor?
No, it's remind me a story about the lady which is asking her father before her first date. She says, Dad, we agreed to meet at 7. Should I come 7:15 or 7:15? And her father looked at her and said, why not in 7? People are saying, Bibi pushed Trump. Others say, no, Trump said, I pushed Bibi. And, depends what you want to, what is your message. If your message is against Bibi, you say he was pushed by Trump. If the message is against Trump, the message is, we say, oh, he was pushed by Bibi. Maybe the truth is that both guys understood that this is the best time to do it, and they agreed to do it, that's all. Each one came with his own intelligence, with own interest, with own vision about the future, and they came to the conclusion, now is the time to do it. I can give you at least 4 reasons why now is the time to do it. And both of them came to the end, and the meetings, they say, okay, we agree that this is the time. Let's see what we can do together. And it was not an argument about if this is the right time, but what is the exact best day to do it and how we are doing it. And I believe, like this old guy who told his daughter 7 o'clock is good enough. Instead of trying to understand who pushed whom, let's assume that both gentlemen agree that this is the right time, but they have to fix the date and the methods and how to cooperate will go together, blah, blah, blah. But it's not about pushing each other.
Hey, Blaze, first of all, I agree with the general again, but, after our discussion in August during the review, one of the things we did talk about is we probably should have stayed after the June attacks and addressed the ballistic missile, both the existing ones and the ability to build new ones and fuel them. I would say on a timing issue, on this one, it probably is going to turn out perfect. But if anything, it was late. We didn't go early. We should have been doing this before. So I'm of the belief that this is the exact right thing to do. The timing might turn out to be perfect. And just like the general said, not later, not earlier, this is the right time.
Thanks, General Walt. John, returning to the topic of Iranian retaliation, General Amajor said that in terms of quantity, the Iranian launches at Israel have been lower than expected. But when you look around the rest of the region, you've had Iran sort of shooting all over the place. It's not just U.S. bases, it's civilian, it's buildings, hotels, energy infrastructure, ships, Cyprus, Turkey today at the Incirlik Air Base where U.S. forces are. Are you surprised at the extent and reach of how Iran has responded to this?
Yeah,
And do you,
I think I said a couple of days ago, I'm not, Blaze. Sorry to cut you off. Um, I think for Iran, this is what we've been talking about for at least a decade, if not more. How will the Iranians respond to an attack? And I think anytime you push the Iranians to believe that this was existential, the regime was itself a target and at risk, that they would feel they had little to lose and would try and inflict as much mayhem and harm on chaos on the region, on the United States, on Israel as they could to try and pull every lever to bring as much pressure to bear. I think principally their target in this case is President Trump. And the thought that if you hit him hard enough, if you got lucky enough, inflicted enough damage, did enough to the price of oil, disrupted, created chaos in the Gulf states, got them to start raising diplomatic pressure and crying for the United States to bring this to a close, that they may be able to survive this and come through it. And I think it's been a bad bet so far, in part just because I think the Gulf states, both particularly in their defensive efforts, have really stepped up and performed. And this is to, I think, in part at least, to a great credit of CENTCOM and the work they've done with these states over the years to provide systems, to do training, to do exercises in air defense, and obviously the war with the Houthis a few years ago obviously gave countries like the Saudis and the Emirates a fair amount of experience here. But they've stepped up and been pretty resolved and resolute. Haven't taken offensive action yet, so to speak. It still seems to me it's in the cards. But rather than forcing them to crumble and put pressure on the United States, I think it's at least for the moment kind of consolidated this sense of a burgeoning coalition that this kind of aggression by the Iranians can't stand. Again, it's still early days. If this goes on for several more weeks, if the tanker traffic through the straits remains as low as it is, I think I heard 3 ships may have been able to pass yesterday. You were usually up around 80 ships or so that are passing on a daily basis. Even if they're not mining, the threat of those drones and strikes and aggression, the speedboats, whatever it is causing a more or less de facto effective shutdown for the moment in the straits. It is putting pressure on airports and transportation routes, and obviously these countries are all to some extent challenged in terms of food security and global supply chains, and they need stuff to be able to flow into their countries, and it can have an effect long term on the price of oil. We'll just have to see. So far, I would say not. And if the Iranians are not lucky, if we continue to pound and degrade and weaken their ability to fire short-range missiles and to decrease their ability to fire these drones and threaten our Gulf partners. I think the Iranians, 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now, are really going to be in a whole lot of pain, and we should be pretty close to being able to at least claim on those military objectives regarding the nuclear missiles, Navy, their ability to project power and threaten American interest and our friends and allies across the region. We're on track to being able to claim some degree of substantial success.
John, you said that this targeting of countries widely around the region could backfire on Iran. What about the specific case of Turkey and the missile that got launched at Incirlik Air Base today in Turkey, which has been, I think reticent in this conflict, sort of trying to play both sides. Generally, you're urging de-escalation. Um, do you see this as potentially changing Turkey's calculus, or is it
Good
just going to,
question.
will it just attribute this to an attack on the U.S., not on Turkish soil, and therefore?
It's a good question. I mean, Turkey, like the Gulf states, and were eager to kind of hedge before this. They didn't want to really, they weren't eager to see this conflict happen for all kinds of their own reasons. But as they found out with the Gulf states, Turkey was kind of the last holdout that hadn't been attacked in those first couple of days of the war. But then that all changed just in recent hours. So we'll have to see how Turkey responds. They said, of course, we be able to act in self-defense if we need to. I still have a sense that most of these countries, unless they're really pushed to the edge and the Iranians really overreach, don't want to become active participants offensively in this war. I don't even know if that would necessarily be a good or complicating factor for the joint effort by the United States and Israel to get any other countries and air forces involved here. The one thing again, I'll say it again, what's happening in Iranian Kurdistan on that Iraqi-Iranian border, the degree to which the United States and Israel are pounding Iranian regime targets in that area. And this discussion, obviously, the president's been in contact with both Iraqi and Iranian Kurdish leaders. The prospect for some kind of covert effort to assist the Iranian Kurds, if not other Iranian ethnic minorities who are reasonably do have arms, do have some level of organization and capability to at least cause problems for the IRGC in their immediate local areas, to put them on the defensive, maybe even seize some towns and villages to embarrass them, maybe try and spark something in the rest of the country, divert resources for the regime, cause them problems, is something worth watching. If that happens, of course, in Kurdistan, in Iranian Kurdistan, the Turks will. That's one thing they have a deep interest in watching and probably preventing any kind of emergence of a new center of Kurdish power near the Turkish border.
Let's just stay with this topic really quickly, John, because we have a question from Jack Kraft who asks, can support for the Iranian Kurds work? Can it be effective? Do you see it as a plausible strategy for weakening the regime?
I do see, I mean, I can see it. I wouldn't overstate it. I'm not exactly sure of what their capabilities are, but I think they're probably willing to fight. The Kurds do have arms, and if they get more capability from the United States and Israel, if they get adequate air cover, I do think they could cause problems for the regime, at least in those local areas near the border in Iranian Kurdistan. It does open up again a can of worms with Turkey, certainly. With If we're going to stage things out of Iraqi Kurdistan, it creates problems for the Kurds there in terms of their own relations with Turkey, with Baghdad. So it does create complication. Obviously, within the Iranian opposition, you have to start arming people who are viewed as ethnic minorities and nationalists and perhaps separatists. Could create problems within the broader Iranian opposition between nationalists and ethnic minorities. But in the immediate sense, I do think that it's something that needs to be thought through carefully, because if you really want to weaken the regime, cause it problems, divert resources, embarrass, humiliate it, you could do worse than working with the Kurds if you can limit the other risks to keep the IRGC busy in its own in that area of Iranian Kurdistan, if they actually can liberate some territory and hold it for any period of time. That'll be a problem for the regime.
Thanks, John. General Amador, I have one more question for you and then want to turn to other questions from the audience. So if you're watching and do want to pose any questions to our panel, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A function in Zoom.
Hey, Blaze, before you do that, just back in the
Sure.
topic that John, first of all, I thought he
Yeah.
articulated it very well. But, I look at what's happening right now as Iran is like a cornered animal. They're striking out all over the place. The fact that they would try to attack Incirlik Air Base is about as stupid as you get from a strategic standpoint. So I think they really got their backs against the wall, and I think their leadership is so in disarray they can't make good decisions. But I just leave it at that.
Thanks, General Wald. General Amador, I wanted to ask you quickly about Iranian proxies. We've had Israel enter into southern Lebanon recently. Hezbollah has started firing at Israel. Was that expected by Israel? How much of a threat is Hezbollah? What's Israel doing against them? But also, are we surprised that we haven't seen anything from the Houthis yet?
We knew that there is huge pressure by the Iranians on Hezbollah to take part. Hezbollah had to make one of the two bad decisions to attack Israel and to take the risk of a big war in which they know Israel can crush the remnants of Hezbollah and make Hezbollah even weaker, or to say no to the Iranians, which are the only place in which they can get some help, mostly money, and no other country is ready to help Hezbollah. Hezbollah is hated by all the neighborhood inside Lebanon, outside Lebanon, and today the Syrians, which see them as the enemy that butchered them, as they were rebels against the rebellion during the rebellion against Assad. So they had to make a decision. At the end of the day, they decided to do something, but very little. But they crossed the red line. They broke the ceasefire agreement, and Israel is preparing the retaliation, and the retaliation will be very severe. For us, maybe it's the chance to finish the Hezbollah as a fighting force in Lebanon and to make it so weak that the Lebanese government can disarm it. So it's a new game ball. Now we have to decide. We are preparing everything slowly. We have a lot of work to do in Tehran. We don't want to be busy with Lebanon at the same time. It will take a few days to prepare ourselves and to be in a better position in Iran. And we will see, but from our point of view, it's maybe the opportunity that we waited for a long time. We didn't know what they will decide. Some said that they will not react. Some said that they will react, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that they did, and by that the ceasefire does not exist anymore, and we will have to make a decision. Okay, what next? About the Houthis, it's a big question mark. I don't have an answer. If I had to assess before, I would say this: the day after we begin the war against Iran, the Houthis will react. I don't know what happened there in Yemen. If there is something behind the curtains that I don't know, I really was surprised by the fact that they didn't open fire yet. But they didn't. It's a fact.
All right. General Wald and General Amador, this might be a question for you from Admiral John Fawzi Miller. He says, there is a difference between the Iranian Navy, which is largely a relic of the days of the Shah and has been almost completely destroyed, and the IRGC Navy, which consists of small boats with RPGs, 50 caliber machine guns, explosives, and mines. How much of a threat do we think the IRGC Navy still poses to the Strait and to the entire Gulf region? Do either of you have an assessment?
From what I understand, the decision of the Americans to destroy both, that the Iranians will not have the ability to make any threat in the Gulf. I don't know what they succeeded up till now, how many of the little ships with the mining capability had been destroyed. But I think that now when they lose the anti-air system along the The Gulf, the Americans could do whatever they want. Maybe it will be a slow process, but slowly they will take out the both navies' capabilities.
Yeah, I think you never want to get too confident or cocky, and I've heard some of that bellicose rhetoric back here at times, and I probably have a tendency to say things, but I think the U.S. Navy will kick their ass, and I don't care whether it's big Navy or small Navy, they're going to have their hands full once the Navy decides to go for it full time.
Thank you, generals. John, maybe a question for you about how this operation has hit China. What are the implications for China, particularly if there's no more discounted oil from Venezuela and now Iran?
Yeah, I think it's going to hurt the entire whatever you want to call it axis of adversaries, the Russia, China, North Koreas, in just the last few years, they've lost their Syrian partner. They couldn't do anything to save it. They lost their partner in Venezuela and a source of oil, obviously, for cheap oil for the Chinese and others. Couldn't do anything to save Maduro. And now, their key partner and troublemaker to keep the Americans pinned down in the Middle East, that the Chinese did a lot to foment this war. A lot of stuff on the missile program that the Chinese quietly did, sanctions busting they did to purchase Iranian oil, whatever intelligence they've been sharing, particularly in the overhead space of American flows of weaponry into the region. When the rubber met the road, the Chinese, Russians, others, nowhere to be found, unable to do anything to implement their so-called strategic relationship with the Iranians, other than chirping from the sidelines, from the cheap seats, not lifting a hand to help the Iranians. So I think they're going to be, in some ways, hurt reputationally by that, assuming this campaign follows through to significant success in terms of our military objectives and dramatically weakening the ability of this Iranian regime to cause problems in the Gulf. And obviously, we'll see what happens with the oil flows going forward. But the Chinese can't be happy at the moment that the straits might be closed down, and all of that cheap oil that they were being able to purchase right now is no longer flowing to China. Now maybe the Saudis and Russians can pick up some of that, but probably at a higher cost to the Chinese. So I just don't see this as a good day for the Chinese, and put on top of that this extraordinary display of America's ability to project power and what that implication may or may not be for a Taiwan scenario in the Indo-Pacific. I can't imagine the Chinese like to see this degree of military success and triumph by the United States and its partner Israel in the region, demonstrating their extraordinary cooperation, high-tech capabilities, and domination. The only advantage for the Chinese is if there is going to eventually, we're going to cannibalize capability from the Indo-PACOM theater, particularly in some of these high-end munitions and capabilities that we might need there, that puts us at a little bit of disadvantage if something was to happen next month in the Pacific. But I don't see that happening. This was the immediate opportunity strategically, geopolitically, to transform a critical, vital region of the world to the United States and to the Chinese. And if we're able to see it through, I just think it's a net bad day for the Chinese, as well as the Russians and others that are in their camp.
Yeah, I think you got to put it. I mean, first of all, again, you don't want to be overly confident. I know that it's a big danger, putting people at risk that you shouldn't. But you got to think from the Chinese and Russian standpoint, they've provided the weaponry to Iran. So far, the only U.S. forces that have been shot down or killed have been shot down by our own allies, Kuwait, other than a very unfortunate drone attack that killed some of our service members. You got to sit back and say, seriously? That's the best our weaponry can do? And it's just incredible. Again, you don't want to be overconfident. We got a long ways to go. It's a big world. There's a lot of things we need to do, but so far it's been a rout.
General Amador, maybe a quick few words to close out from you. You told us this is the beginning of phase two. How long do you expect this phase to take? What will it accomplish, and what do we need to look for to sort of see the markings of the end of phase two and the start of phase three?
I don't know if it'll be a stage three. Now the mission is to make the regime weaker. And this is something that you cannot measure. You never know when the regime is weak enough. Weak enough, I mean that when the opposition that might emerge try to take out the regime is weak. You don't know. You never know. You know when they succeed, it means that it was weak enough. In a way, probably it is like I heard it's some Americans say it's like bankruptcy. It's slowly, and then immediately. I don't know. I think that what we should do, we should be very systematic. In a way, we should act on the American way now. When we finish the most of the ballistic and the nuclear, we have to be very American in our way of thinking, very systematically to reduce the capabilities of the regime. To put a list and say, this is the list that we want the regime weaker in. If it is command and control, the Navy, the ability to use the Basij and the Revolutionary Guard, and so on and so forth, and slowly but surely and systematically to make the regime weaker. How long? Till we feel that this is a very weak regime. The opposition didn't appear, so we cannot make the job of the Iranians. But from now on, Iran is not the mighty Iran that we had in the past. Maybe they're even the same regime. I think it's very bad, but let's worst come to worst. It is the same regime, but huge different in its capabilities. And when the regime is so weak, you can monitor it, and whenever there are signs that the regime is resuming to build some of its military capabilities, you appear again, and with a very weak regime, it's not so problematic, and you destroy it as well. So there are two options. One, for sure, with the two options, we have to make the regime much weaker. If we succeed and the opposition will come and take the control, it's fantastic. If not, it will be the same Iran, formally, but practically different Iran because they don't have the capabilities, and we have the capability to monitor it and to act if will be a need.
Well, I would just say that the one cautionary note I would add is, okay, we end the campaign, the people come out, but they don't topple the regime. Instead, another 10 or 20,000 people get mowed down after the president of the United States has urged them, once this campaign is over, come out and seize your government, take your opportunity. It'll be a tough position to be in, whether or not you continue the campaign or you say, no, we've weakened this regime. It cannot project power. It cannot threaten American interests beyond its borders anymore. It obviously can still kill a lot of its own people and is willing to do that, but that's not America and Israel's fight. It may be the fight for our intelligence agencies and covert programs going forward, but it's not the job of our military to come in and say, get in between the Iranian people and a protest in the streets to try and topple their government. That'll be a question that the president may have to face, maybe not, but it's something that the rhetoric has kind of raised anyway, that possibility.
I hope you're the national security advisor that tells the president not to do that, John.
But I think that it is not now the best time to make the decision. It very much depends on the circumstances. This is something that you never know how it will be looks like and what will be the two sides that you have to take into account: what opposition, how strong is the opposition, how much you had been involved in bringing the opposition, so you have some commitments. I think it is something that intellectually we have to raise, but practically we don't have to make any decision on.
All right. Well, that is certainly something we'll stay focused on, and I think discussing end states is something that we'll certainly be doing in the days to come. General Amador, General Wald, John, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to our audience. Please stay tuned to jinsa.org for all the latest analysis of everything that's happening in Iran and around the region. Thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much.